Welcome back to Racing Rundown. This is the first segment of Racing Rundown around the world for Royal Ascot 2022. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get out a segment for the first couple of days of Royal Ascot, but we did talk about those races on episode 163 of Racing Rundown, so I will link that below in the description. So if you are interested in getting our opinions for whatever is left of day two by the time that this video goes out, of course, we already talked about day one, and since day one's already happened, those opinions are kind of are old at this point, but most of those races were rather straightforward. So if it was going to be, if we were going to be late on something, that was the day to be late on. But in this one, we're only going to be talking about one race, just for the sake of time, and that is, of course, the Ascot Gold Cup, one of the big features of this entire meeting, 2.5 miles, or roughly 2.5 miles. And I am being joined for the first time on Racing Rundown Around the World by Eric. So I had mentioned in the initial one that this would be fluid every single week who would be doing this. So I will turn it over to Eric in a couple of minutes, but I am going to highlight a couple of the horses that we are going to talk about. Of course, he's not the favorite right now, as you can see in the markets, but the headliner would be, of course, Stradivarius, the three-time winner of this race. He won this race 2018, 2019, and 2020. Ran in it last year, did not win it. He's going to try to win a fourth, obviously not in the exact stretch, but a fourth Ascot Gold Cup in his career. Aidan O'Brien has the very intriguing runner Kyprius. There's also Trushan, who has won a couple of stayer races at Ascot before. So we'll get into, and then a couple other interesting horses in here. So we'll get into all that. I'll turn it over to Eric to get us started off with this. And welcome to your first time on Racing Rundown Around the World.
Thanks, Jack. Happy to be here. Obviously, I'm a big fan of overseas racing. It's not just Europe, Japanese, Australian racing. I love watching it all, but European racing is probably my favorite, especially Ascot, especially races like these of such high quality. This is a really exciting field. I think it's a bit top-heavy, but the top is really good. And I'm really excited to see if Stradivarius can pick up his fourth win in this race. Obviously, he's been doing this for a long time. He's an 8-year-old now. He may have taken one step back, but one step back for a horse of this talent is not far from being an elite racehorse still. Obviously came back with a win to begin the year, which was good because he's dropped 2 decisions to end last year. But I think he had excuse. He's a horse that is tended to really appreciate the firmer ground, and both of his losses to end 2021 came over soft. At Longchamp, it was just so much cut in the ground, and even at Ascot in the long distance cup, it wasn't necessarily his cup of tea either. But he bounced back well, got a very nice win in the Yorkshire Cup to begin the year, and now he's going to get a really firm, solid ground at Ascot Thursday for the Gold Cup. And we obviously know distance more so than any horse in this race. He's going to see out the 2.5 miles. He loves the course. He's obviously put together these wins in this race specifically 3 times, and he's beaten much tougher fields than this on multiple occasions. So he has every chance in the world, in my opinion. Once again, I know he's probably regressed a little, but I don't think it's enough to put him far off from winning this race. And I think it's incredible. There's a scenario where he doesn't even go off favored behind the likes of a Kyprios. So that obviously bodes well. It's not often you can say you get value on a horse who's looking for his 4th win in a certain race, but to me, whatever odds you get it on Stradivarius at 2-1 or higher will be huge.
And now we'll get into the horse who right now in most of the bookmakers is favored, and that is Kyprios, the Aidan O'Brien trained horse in here. And, kind of, an example of maybe a new guard scenario here. We'll see what ends up happening here. Kyprios is coming out of a couple of really good victories, going 1 3/4 miles. The question is, obviously, he hasn't had that step up yet in distance. That's not necessarily to say that he can't. Certainly, you look at who he's sired by. That's certainly something that could be a possibility for him. And the last couple of efforts, especially that 14th link victory in Ireland, was extremely impressive, and you can see why the bookmakers have made him, or he is the favorite right now in the certain bookmakers that he is favored in. You obviously do have to ask the question right now of, well, is he going to be able to beat a Stradivarius, and is he going to see out the 2.5 miles of this distance? But it makes sense why at this point he has as many backers as he has in here. I want to get to the horse that I like in here, Trushan, before I turn it back over to Eric. Trushan has been a horse who has often in his career preferred softer ground here, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But the form that he's been in has been very good as of late. He won the Group 1 at Longchamp against Stradivarius. Eric talked about that with the very soft ground there. So it will probably be a little bit more competitive. Stradivarius will probably be closer to him, but he has gone this far before on plenty of occasions. He's also a horse that likes the course at Ascot. He won the Long Distance Cup the last 2 years in 2020 and 2021. So you're not concerned about distance or anything, distance or the level of competition, because he has run very well against this level of competition before. Obviously, the big question is the course is going to be firm, and that's certainly going to play more into Stradivarius's advantage than it would for Trushan. But I'm going to swallow that, take the recent form that he's been in, and hope that Stradivarius might just the step back that Stradivarius has taken might be enough to give Trushan this race. I'll turn it back over to Eric to talk about the other two horses in here, and then we'll move on to a couple more that we want to mention before we get this wrapped up.
I think it's very fair. I think on talent, Trushan definitely holds some kinds of advantages. At this stage of the game, being slightly younger, and he holds 2 victories over Stradivarius in recent months and in the past year. But yeah, I think that I don't know if the firm ground so much downgrades Trushan as much as it just upgrades Stradivarius, and that'll be really beneficial to him. I think it was a deciding factor in those 2 races that I mentioned when discussing Stradivarius, but you can't deny a horse who's on a winning streak like Trushan is. The distance is going to be something he'll see out just fine. And I think that's, to me, if you can get through some torrential weather like he did last fall at Longchamp and going 2.5 miles, that means you clearly have no issues over firm ground where things will be quick, and you'll be able to float over it, and it's much less taxing on you. He's really in excellent form right now, but I think it's going to be equal footing more so than it has been in recent runs. As for Kyprios, it's just that we wanted to go back to the value aspect of it all. I get he has a lot of talent, but at the same time, he has never actually gone these distances. He's never gone further than 1 3/4 miles, and all of a sudden he's going to go 2.5 miles. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I wouldn't be surprised if he sees it out. He's well related to horses who were good going far, but not this far. He's a half sibling to Search for a Song, an excellent mare of Dermot Wells, also owned by the Moigler stud, and she's won up to 2 miles, but nothing's ever suggested she could maybe go further than that in my eyes. So I really do need to see him do it before I can fully believe in him, because that's a huge jump. That's a 6 furlong jump that he'll be making. 3/4 mile is a long ways to improve, and he could do it, but that's not something I'm willing to see at the current odds that he's trending at. I don't know if it'll be the same in American markets and it'll maybe take less money, but at least overseas he's taking quite a bit, and it just doesn't seem like the right value given that he does have a lot to prove. I think the ability he's shown and the youthfulness he has gives him an edge, and the constant and consistent improvement he's been showing. But the fault is, of course, he has a lot of questions still to answer, and that's not reflected in the betting, which I just find a little confusing. I think that Stradivarius is a slightly more secure option than Trushan, but that being said, I think they're both a step above Kyprios, and the fact they'll be higher prices is absolutely huge.
So now a couple more horses that we have to mention before we head out from here. We have to talk about the fourth, outside of that top 3. Your next best bet is Princess Zoe, coming out of a 2 mile race, a 2 mile trial at Ascot. He was also she was also in that. She was also running in Riyadh and in the I think it's the Red Sea Turf was the longer the 2 races there. If I flip the names of that, I do apologize. Didn't run too well there, but you go back. Obviously, the effort over Ascot was not a bad thing. She was also in that Group 1 race at Longchamp behind Stradivarius and Trushan. If you're looking outside of that top three, obviously an easy option there. I want to mention one other horse in here that, especially playing this race in the United States, could potentially be one to float up here and be worth a play underneath, and that's Mojo Star, the runner-up in the two legs of the English Triple Crown last year, second to Adyar in the Derby, second to Hurricane Lane in the St. Leger, and then was throughout the course of his entire year last year, he was running against some really, really tough competition level. And it doesn't get easier for him in this spot necessarily, but I think at the right price, it might not be the worst thing to try a value play with him here. But, you just look at that form that he was competing at. Now, the same criticism that you would have for Kyprios is for Mojo Star here. And Kyprios has wins that Mojo Star does not have. This is a horse who's only won once in his life. Sure, he's been Group 1 placed on two separate occasions, and he's been running really well and running in really formful races. This was a horse that was beaten less than 7 lengths in the Arc. Sure, he was 10th, but look at the quality of competition that he was running against in that Arc. He is also coming off a break into here. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. He ran second off a over 200-day break behind Manobo, who came back to do what Manobo did in Dubai. So he's always been running against good competition level. And I think maybe this isn't the spot for him because he has to go up against Group 1 level stayers. But at some point, Mojo Star is going to find an easier level of race, and he's going to break through. And I hope to be able to get him at that point, especially in this market, because Mojo Star is just the kind of horse that just screams floating in the U.S. and paying whoever's paying attention to get him in that race a ton of money.
Yeah, I think that Mojo Star is a intriguing type for sure. He hasn't ran since last October, and I don't think the stretch out will be a problem. And he kept great company last year. Of course, ran second in the St. Leger, ran second in the Epsom Derby. So that's pretty damn good. But he does need to, of course, find a way to take a step forward, see out the distance in his first start as a 4-year-old. Another horse I think that she'll be a fair price and things like that, maybe still high single digits, but if you're looking to try and beat those 3 favorites we've reiterated, that'd be Princess Zoe, a really nice mare, Irish filly, who she's done a lot of good things in her career. She's coming off a win in the Sagaro, which is basically the local prep for this race, and she's just been so hit or miss throughout her career, but she's a Group 1 winner. If you go back to 2020, she won the Prix de Cadran that Truchen beat Stradivarius in 2021. So she's kept the right company. And she's also just a cool story in general. She was originally expected to become a hurdling mare. She began her career in Germany, didn't really amount to much there, was sold for not very much money to these Irish connections with the expectation she would eventually go on to become a hurdler, a chaser, and lo and behold, now she's a world-class stayer. She does need to find that race, though, that'll she's another horse where the ground can be a bit tough. She seemed that her best runs might go on the heavier, the softer, more yielding ground, if you will. But she's also coming off a win over very similar conditions in the Sagaro. That was really the first time she's proven herself over the firmest of grounds. So that was actually pretty impressive to me. And of course, distance is not going to be a problem for her. So it's just a horse that if you're going to put your faith in her, it's kind of on the basis that, okay, this is the race she's going to show up, but it's not the worst thing in the world. She's coming off a really nice win. I think you can throw out the run in Riyadh before that on Saudi Cup Day, and then she fits right in. So that's one I consider at a price, but even then, I still think she's probably third or fourth best here.
And with that being mentioned, that is going to be it for our little look at the Ascot Gold Cup. Again, I'm going with True Shannon here. Eric's going with Stradivarius. I'll give the last word to you outside of the horses that we mentioned. Is there anyone else that you'd like to add to this before we head out of here?
Yeah, I think one horse who might, I don't know, if you're really trying to go crazy, it would be Earl of the Cotswolds, a horse who, another one that was a veteran, another one who made a lot of starts. He was another one that actually did some work over the hurdles and the steeplechase races, and he was decent enough. But he's gone back to the flat, and it's worked out. The problem is he's done all of his work on the all weather at Kempton and then last time out at Newcastle. And he was really strong in them. He won one of the all weather championship races, the marathon version, last time out, and before that, won a bunch of the qualifier races leading in. 2 starts back, he beat Coltrane, who won one of the races on the first day of this year's Royal Ascot meeting. So really, really impressive stuff lately. And I mean, it's not a surface thing. He can handle the grass. He's won over it plenty of times before. You just have to wonder how much of an improvement he could take. But wouldn't be surprised if he puts in the right performance to maybe be that long shot and that steps up, because it's not crazy to think that one or two of the highly touted choices would take a step back. But for me, I still think Stradivarius is your winner. I think Trushan runs right with him. I doubt Kiprios a bunch until he can prove to me he can go the distance. Princess Zoe has to show up on this day. And then for Mojo Star, got to come back off the layoff. Earl of Cotswold, you got to answer the surface question. Stradivarius, Trushan, I don't have many questions about, but I think Stradivarius is a little bit more of a sure thing than Trushan to win this race.
And with that being mentioned, that's going to be it for this look at the Ascot Gold Cup. This isn't going to be the last thing that we're going to do on Racing Rundown this week. Obviously, we still have 3 more days of Royal Ascot to get stuff out for. There will be specific episodes of Racing Rundown for those, both on the podcast and then other things on YouTube we will do for a couple of those races. Certainly the Coronation Stakes, absolutely one that we will get into, and potentially 1 or 2 more of the races. But with that being mentioned, we'll see you for the remainder of the stuff that we have for this week. And outside of that, have a good one.